I'm very happy to have the CEO and founder of Silverback with us, Silverback Development. Josh was on everybody's up-and-coming list, from Cranes to The Real Deals to many other publications and news outlets that recognize them as a young hotshot. He eventually went on to start his own firm, Silverback, which built a pipeline of over $2 billion of projects. And in the last 2 years, he's had some challenges and obstacles from partners accusing him of misappropriating funds and other stuff. And we're going to discuss that with him today. He's very brave to be here today. Josh, thank you for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me today.
You were sued by multiple partners, asked to leave other projects for misdeeds, and much of your own team left you. I believe your firm went from 18 people, and now you have 8 people at your firm. You have all these lawsuits out there. There's all these challenges on you. Why would you agree to do this interview?
I think this is really for the 8 people that stuck by me. This is really for the company that continues to move forward. This is really an effort to clean my name, tell my story, and also to those listening to just say that New York City has its roller coaster ride, and it can kick you when you're down, and if you have the strength to get back up, I think it will also give you the resources you need to get back to where you were, if not to a better place.
Do you feel like you're working your way to a comeback?
I think we as a company are. I think we've learned from the last 2 years, in the face of potential bankruptcies, with tenants not paying rent, whether it's office or leasing, with condos that aren't selling, with lenders calling on your personal guarantee, with construction falling behind, with so much circumstance beyond your control, with everyone talking about leaving New York, how it's never going to return to what New York City was. The headwinds were so strong. It was almost being on the north face of a mountain during a blizzard. So yes, I do think we will overcome this challenge, and we've learned a lot as a result.
Do you feel like now that you have all these challenges with Silverback, a lot of the developers that I talk to tell me that it's almost impossible for you to come back as Silverback. Do you feel like you have to change the name of the company and rebrand yourself?
A lot of people have offered that suggestion. They've asked that question. It's a very painful question to receive. My response is that, broken crayons can still color. And while we have a blemish now, or maybe a tattoo, it's allowed us to really work in terms of the corporation as a tighter knit family, right? And we have to work that much harder, not only to compete against those that are second, third, fourth generation, or might have landed a large fund. It's always been a struggle for us. This is an unfortunate outcome, but if I was able to do it with literally nothing, I think that we'll overcome this test, and we'll be surrounded by people that are more loyal, that really know our work ethic, and that aren't just reading articles or coming to conclusions based on what they read and what they think to be facts, which in some cases are not.
And what do you mean by loyal? Who do you think was not loyal to you?
Well, it's amazing how many calls one gets in a day as a developer, whether it's deals or equity or debt. When those phone calls stop because they believe that it's over. When certain employees feel the need that maybe this is the right time to take advantage. Maybe there's leverage there. Maybe there's an ability to usurp corporate opportunities from me and some of the others that are floundering. Right? This was a big shock. There was an abrupt departure by several, and I think those that stayed behind, it's a testament. We all had to take on jobs that were either above or below our pay grades. Mm-hmm. And, that's what you do when something goes wrong in the household. If someone gets sick, you start doing whatever you can to put food on the table.
I mean, your staff went from 18 people to 8 people. And when you talk about loyalty, obviously that many people leaving the company, it's not just because the market is down. There was like real, ethical issues, according to what's out there. There are real ethical issues that bothered them as a group that made half of the company literally walk out. So do you feel like you had some responsibility in that?
Look, I think at the end of the day, I take full responsibility for any tattoo that's now on the Silverback body. I think that the notion that this departure was because of these allegations, I think that's false. I know it to be false. In fact,
so you don't think that the people left your company because of all the lawsuits and the complaints from the investors and stuff? Why do you think that they decided to leave?
It's not only this notion that it's an ethical decision, or they felt like the morals of the company had changed. It was, will there be a paycheck in a couple of weeks? How long will that last? Will Josh, who raises the money and finds the deals, will we continue to hold on to projects? Will we find new ones? Or is this the right time to go find a different opportunity? And I think we offer an environment. This is something I think with resounding repetition, the former employees, current employees will say, everyone's an entrepreneur.
Some of the charges against you with your partners and some of the investors with you, they're the worst of the worst in our industry, right? They're saying that you took money that was meant for one project and used it for another project. One of them is accusing you of $2 million disappearing and nobody knows where that money went. To those charges, those are egregious charges. Those are hard things to overcome.
Yeah, so I can't speak to the specific of the cases except for the fact that our responses are submitted, and it's clear by the problem with litigation altogether is it's whoever shoots first narrates the story. Mm-hmm. So they could throw the kitchen sink at it, and now you'll notice with introduced paperwork into the courts that this one's removed, this allegation's removed, this one is denied because of XYZ fact. But people don't go back to read the follow-up. They read the first story, right, or the first complaint. So,
but obviously there was a pattern. There was a lot of them, Josh, and for different projects. It wasn't one project or one person. There was multiple people with multiple projects. So there was a pattern there. It's hard to say that. Do you believe that all of those things are, frivolous?
Look, there's one particular lawsuit that has a lot of bad words. Okay, and the courts are for proving whether or not those bad words should have been mentioned, and there are my own way of seeking remedy. Okay, when we prove those to be erroneous. Notwithstanding, if you look at some of the other cases that were breach of contract, without getting the specifics, let's boil down into what that really meant. There were instances where I agreed to pay back investors, okay, because they had been my investors for a decade, and they were losing money because maybe I was no longer involved. Okay, so what developer in New York City gives someone back their money, gives an investor back their money? Only a developer that really cares. So, and by the way, in most of these instances, they've received the majority of their money back. But when COVID hit, and I would have stuck to those contracts, when COVID hit, it was impossible.
I talked to several people, and the ones that I talked to, they said that they greatly respected you. They said you're one of the most talented people that they ever worked for, and they learned a lot from you. And in the same breath, they said that you really let them down, and that you didn't deliver on promises to them, and that you put them into compromising situations, and that's why they left. That's the answer that I got.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing. And look, at the end of the day, when you're struggling and you're holding the front line or the floodgates, and you're remote, you're removed from New York City, We were dislocated with 3 children in uncharted territory, and people are dying, and CNN, the red line is spiking every day, and the governor's shutting down the ability to show apartments and construction, and everyone's terrified. Okay, people are walking their dogs with baseball bats, terrified. People are selling toilet paper on the side of the street, terrified. Then the right thing to do would have been to close shop. Compromising situations, I can't speak to that without, there's always been open dialogue in the company. My door's always open. So people come in and I embrace their opinions, but we've done everything by the book. I mean, a lot of our partners are institutional. One of the requirements when we were at Silver Peak, in their office space, we had to maintain quarterly reporting.
I know, but Josh, there's like accusations of you, like you know the accusations. So to say that you did everything by the book, that might seem insincere, because there's talk of you moving money from one project to another one, you hiding litigation from one of your lenders, which makes you, puts you in a breach of contract for that project, and other things like that. So I understand, I get it. Like institutional investors want everything to be blue checked and pristine. So I mean,
well, I'll speak to just that one. I mean, look, the rep and warranty is quote unquote material litigation. Material has in itself, and unfortunately, I play a lawyer on TV now. I've been through the ringer here. If I'm getting sued, which by the way, a frivolous lawsuit has been thrown out by a seller of a house in the Hamptons that I didn't even want, didn't sign a contract, and he sues me for alleged damages of whatever, $250,000, whatever it might have been, then it was thrown out. Why would I call my lender and tell them that? It's not a material contract, and if anything, it's frivolous. And the judge laughed at it and threw it out. So now, if I was taking on a loan today, of course, I have a memo that outlines all of the outstanding judgments in litigation, right? Of course, I have to rep that to, if we file a new AG offering plan, we have to make that rep. So we don't withhold information. And by the way, it's all public. A quick LexisNexis by any title company searcher or any attorney, it's going to pop up.
That was one of the accusations by one of the partners. But I want to ask you about these projects, and I want to know how you're still involved with them. 131 East 47th Street, a 200-unit condo tower set to rise at 34 stories. Are you still involved in that?
So I don't want to get into the specifics of each project. I can tell you globally, just because of what's going on in each particular one and the judgment's outstanding. But I will tell you that globally, after July 16th, when the article was published, we were 2 weeks away from closing one loan in particular. Okay, about $100 million in total capitalization. They literally walked away from the deal 2 weeks before closing. Documents are ready to go.
So you're about to close.
We're about to close, and then the article comes out. Yeah, and then they pulled the plug. We were maybe 60 days away from selecting a lender and moving forward with a $180 million loan. So these are real opportunities that were lost. And look, we feel changed as a result of the article. And one way we've moved forward in terms of our involvement in these deals that are in our pipeline and on our website, we are still very much involved. The question is, as those wrap up, because there are in various stages of the cooking cycle in the kitchen, we're now out trying to buy more groceries. We're out there literally tying up new projects. And the first thing we do is sit down with the equity or lender and say, look, this is what happened. This is the file in the litigation. Here's a memo outlining where we are. Okay, this is the status of pending matters. We're doing a deal right now with a very, very large foreign institution. Okay, and we had dinner, and clearly with Google these days, everything comes up. Google does not populate the 300 plus articles that were written positively about the company, the people that work for it, myself. the philanthropic endeavors that we do, that wasn't covered. The first 10 links were about this controversial issue.
But, I mean, this was a major thing, right?
Totally,
This,
but I'm okay with that.
In the right way, because like I think it's important for investors and people, if there is a cloud, people should know about it. I mean,
no, without question.
Right.
But what I'm getting at is not so much that it's there, it's how do we get ahead of it now? Like, this isn't something you dust under the rug, right? This is
so
something.
what is your current pitch right now to investors?
Well, we've had 3 successful ones. The pitch is, here's the value we add. This is the thematic story that we can deliver, right? So what I'm getting at is we sit down, we lay out a business plan as it is and say, oh, and by the way, we see, that it's well received, but we should also talk about the elephant in the room. And this is it. Okay, this is where we are. You can talk to some of our trusted lenders and investors. Here's the reference list. And then come back and tell us if, they appreciate that honesty, because frankly, I would be very, very surprised if a developer in this city had an unblemished background. Okay, everyone can say anything about anyone, which is the problem. Doing it during a pandemic through litigation, I think certainly exacerbates it. But look, it's been a very humbling experience.
But so, the article you're referring to is the article that we did back in July, talking about all these lawsuits and accusations. And that's the top article that generally comes up when,
Yeah, you have such a large following.
No, but so even after that article, even after all the lawsuits and stuff, you are still able to manage money from investors for your new projects.
Yeah, we still are managing money. We are still actively pursuing opportunities. We are still working on.
I get actively pursuing opportunities. That's on your end, but like
Sure.
people investing money with you,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
like somebody else who's
we have
putting their
signed.
trust in
Yes,
you.
we have signed documents with new investors, first-time investors, much larger players than those that we've been fortunate enough to work with today. And those that know us and have worked with us, they know we'll get the job done. And in one instance, I went as far personally and said, look, if you want to believe what you read, okay, you keep the purse. We'll just build the job. Ultimately, we build buildings. We get dirty. I look clean today for this interview, but we're out there getting dirty. I don't like writing checks. I don't like sending wires. Like, that's not what we do.
Some of the investors that we talked to said that they were shocked to find out that you're still flying private and you have a chauffeur driver and all this stuff, and you're traveling to 5-star resorts or whatever with your family. They were shocked that with all this stuff breathing down your neck, that you were still living like this. And they were saying, this is sort of how developers are. They always have to stunt like everything's going well despite of it all. What do you say to them?
I'd say that they don't know who's footing the bill, whose plane it really is, in the one instance that I'm invited on it. And as for 5-star resorts, I mean, we've all racked up points, okay? And to say that, first off, it's really creepy that somebody's watching all of our actions, but why don't they instead look into, the Broward County health system? My name, which I've now since scratched, it's in honor of my grandparents, is on a panel in every single Broward County hospital. I personally, while I suffered during COVID, personally gave out 10,000 COVID tests. Okay, I had guys with Amazon trucks who could not leave their kids at home sitting in the seats while I'm personally testing families. I'm on the phone with Congressman Tim Ryan talking about how we can get money from USAID for different charities, because it's nearly impossible to raise money for charities today because of the lack of in-person galas. So I'm just pointing out that I'm no saint, okay?
You're describing the saint.
But I'm describing the fact that I'm much more than clothes and 5-star resorts and all that stuff.
No, I get that. I think the question is that, like, look, there's all this money that some people are accusing of it being misappropriated, and they're saying this money is missing. Investors are asking for it, and there's lawsuits about it, and they're saying, if this stuff is happening, how are you able to fly private? Why aren't you, like, paying back some of these guys or settling some of this stuff? If that's
well, look, I think that same person or source should go back and rewind the tape and look at the updates that are public. I mean, cases have been settled. There is documentation to further settle a lot of these judgments. Projects are coming to conclusions on TCOs and C of Os, and we're finally selling again. We're refinancing out of projects. We're saving our shirt, and the fact that we can say that to our investors, did you lose money? No. Why? Because we executed. It's a good thing we were ahead of schedule.
But some people
right?
did lose money, obviously. I mean, that's what the lawsuits are for.
No. I mean, one is about, two are contractual because I was returning their investment. Don't have to do that. Did it because they were by our side. If I knew I was going to get sued, go ask Gary Barnett to return investors' money. It's not happening. That's not how this game works. One particular person who might be out there tarnishing my name thinks this is E-Trade. We had a tiny friends and family investment, and just because they might want to get out of the real estate business, New York City's scary. You can't just right-click send an email and demand dollars back. That's just not how it works.
When we met before this, you mentioned that when the article came out, it was really hard for you to get institutional money. But then you had to put together $110 million, and you managed to go get that, raise that money, and without any documentation. Who were those investors? Obviously, they weren't institutional investors. They were your own personal contacts, and were they? What kind of people are they that were able to give you that kind of money without documentation and be able to back you?
Well, I think we're mixing two different things. Some of the money that I've raised previously have been with such tight relationships that they have funded ahead of documentation. I mean, eventually gets done,
right?
But they've done that.
So you were like in the tight. I guess there was a tight few days where you had to raise the money really fast.
Yes. So there's an element of trust there that not a lot of people are fortunate enough to have. On top of that, in terms of raising the money, look, it started with myself. When you have a giant, let's call it an A on your head, okay, and you're walking around. I mean, parent-teacher gatherings, parents that I would normally they'd be so warm to me, would walk to the other side of the room. Okay, the first couple of weeks I wore a hat. I was embarrassed to go in public. We were concerned that maybe our children, would no longer be invited to playdates, right? Everyone reads everything. We have a caretaker. She came home saying that other caretakers were talking about it. So obviously the heads of the households might have been too. So that's an awful feeling. So it took months to get out of that rut. I mean, reputation's all you have, and we started from scratch. So to those that want me to change Silverback, it's not happening. It's not happening. We are our name. Instead, we're going to scrub the blemish off. It's like getting a tattoo. We'll ink it in, or just accept what it is.
What is the lesson in all of this for you? Obviously, you're a young guy. You have more experience than developers in their 60s have, just because of how early you started and the size of projects you were able to do. So right now, after all of this stuff, what's the ultimate lesson for you?
I think the ultimate lesson is be more selective about who you surround yourself with. Stay positive, stay persistent, and don't wave over a white flag. I mean, the biggest advice I received from everyone, from attorneys to friends and family, was just throw in the towel. Shut the shop down. You'll be all right. You'll bounce back. You do something else. So instead, it was wake up, stop crying.
Right.
Stop crying, because it's not doing anything.
If you could look into the camera and talk to the investors who are still who still have it out for you, and to give them a message, what message would you give them?
I would tell them that I'm sorry that our bridge has been burnt. I would like to repair it, and I'll ensure that if they trust us again, they will not lose the money, they will not lose the relationship, and just like we've repaired ourselves, and I'm certainly continually changing and trying to better to maintain the direction of that moral compass. It's painful to lose people that you care about. And that goes, by the way, to some of the ex-team members. I'm sorry that it was such a stressful and terrible environment, mainly because of me. Like, I wasn't myself. Mm-hmm. I was so scared of losing what took so long to build up that it was like tunnel vision.
Well, the good thing about New York City is that it loves a good comeback. So hopefully that'll be your story. Josh, I want to thank you for coming on and talking. Yeah. This was very brave of you. And thank you everyone for joining in. We'll surely continue to cover Josh, good or bad. So tune in for that too.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.